Hi everyone, it's Rana Husseini, and on today's episode we have Isaiah Johnson here who's going to talk about his journey to where he's at now. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So tell me a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and where you come from.
I'm Isaiah Johnson. I'm a sophomore for Edinburgh University, and I play wheelchair basketball for the school. The reason why I play wheelchair basketball is because I was born with a disability called cerebral palsy. And what that is basically a lower limb disability, which is caused from a birth injury, either at birth or during birth, and affects the lower limbs, but also affects my upper body to a certain extent. I'm a sophomore at Edinburgh, and I'll be going into my junior year here soon.
And so how did you get into playing wheelchair basketball? Like, was there anybody in your life who kind of guided it?
Yeah, so it's actually kind of a funny story. So we always talked about it, me growing up, just me playing it, but it never really happened. Then one day I just decided to take the initiative, and I just Googled wheelchair basketball near me, and it happened to be like the last option on the Google search. It was crazy, because if I would have stopped scrolling, I wouldn't even be sitting here right now. But I scrolled all the way down. The very last option was a local community league near me. And I've been playing ever since then.
And so was there any person in your life that you feel like had like a big impact on your decision, besides obviously just that moment of like you wanting to?
Well, actually, I feel like it was more so an external source. For me, basketball has always been an outlet. It's always been what kind of took me away from personal issues or anything like that, especially at a young age, dealing with being different than the rest of the kids in school and everything like that. So basketball was always just the outlet, my go-to source to get away from it. So that's always what drove me to it, just to escape everything else going on.
And so you talked about being different. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Like, how has it been just experiencing that, or like experiencing the eyes of those who you feel are perceiving you differently?
Well, at a young age, I would say it was a lot tougher than it is now. Because obviously, as you get older, you grow a mindset of you're confident in yourself. But at a young age, it was definitely tough, especially around the age of like 13 or middle school, whatever time period that is. Around 7th grade, around there is really when it started to hit for me personally, just because that's when I kind of realized that like, hey, I'm different and I'm looked at differently. There's different options for me as far as like what different routes that I have to go in life. Even just little things like recess. See, back then, things in recess was different for me. Everybody else be playing basketball, playing football, and I'm watching things like that. So it's always just been a challenge and a difference for me.
And how would you like cope with those differences? Like what was, like you said, basketball was your outlet, but like you said, you didn't realize that until later.
Yeah.
But like, talk to me like as if you're talking to a little kid who's like going through these type of emotions.
Yeah. I guess for me, what kind of makes me who I am is that I dealt with it internally. So through that is why basketball became such an outlet, because that's how I got the emotions out. That's how I got the frustrations out. That's how I got everything that I felt from it out. But prior to basketball, everything, the way that I dealt with everything was just always, I just internalized it. I didn't really speak about it much, and I just kind of just kept going day by day, just acting like, it's okay. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And so, what support system did you have? Like, who, if you have specific people in your life, like who was your support system? My
mom is a huge support system for me, because she kind of exemplifies everything that I want to be as far as character, as far as keeping my head high and not letting circumstances bring you down. Because where we come from, where my mother brought us up at, that's she had to face that every day. And I look at my problems compared to hers, and I can't really complain. You know what I mean? Because she had to get us through some rough times. So I really just looked at her as an example. I think that's the best way that she led for us, was leading by example, not really through her words, but by example, and just taking day by day to thrive and just be better for not only herself but for people around her.
And so you're talking a lot about your mom, and you're referencing we. Like, who's we to you, obviously?
We, my mother, my sister. That's what I came up with. It was just me, my mother, and my sister. We came up just by ourselves, and we just had to make it through.
And so, how was you and your mom's relationship? Like, was there a specific time where she kind of had to talk to you, like sit down and be like, listen, like Isaiah, like you were born with it, like just explaining to you why you're different.
Yeah. So there was a point when I was younger. When I was younger, I was a lot more naive to just everything going on. And there was a point where I just asked her, I was like, so when is this? I asked her, when is this stuff? Is it gonna go away? And she looked at me, and I could see she was getting emotional after I said it. But that was a big moment for me because I had to really face what was going on, and she had to be real with me and tell me like, hey, this is something you're gonna have to fight through, something you have to deal with. It's not something that's short term. You gotta fight through it, push through it. Yeah.
And so you said, you guys had it rough. So like, I know just like purchasing a rim, because personally, like I didn't get my rim until like for like 7th grade year. So like, and everything's so expensive. So like, how did you have access to anything related to basketball, even like training?
Yeah. So we had when I looked up that the Google search for Worcester basketball. There was a group camp called Camp Cheerful where they had these adaptive programs, Worcester basketball and a bunch of other things. And in that it was practice like one day a week. And what we would have to do, because at that time we were living with my aunt and my uncle. So at that time we were driving like 45 to an hour to practice like once a week. And that was really all I had for the week, because outside of that, it was like, we can't get you into a YMCA. We can't get you to these other programs that can have you more than once a week. You get what I'm saying? Yeah.
And so I think you told me, but how did you get your first gym membership?
Oh yeah, my first gym membership. So my sophomore year of high school, a great coach of mine, a great mentor to me all around, was a lady named Mrs. Stone. Shout out Mrs. Stone. She one day she noticed that I always wanted to play basketball, but I just didn't have the resources for it. And one day, like I think a couple days before Christmas, she comes up to me. She's like, "So what do you want for Christmas?" She sits me down. I tell her, I was like, I just want a gym membership so I'm able to play basketball every day. The next day, she shows up with one, and I'm telling you, I was in that gym every single day, nonstop for hours. And, yeah.
And so, what kept you going? Like, obviously now you're playing college basketball, and like when you get to college, your why is so strong because it gets difficult, like in all aspects of life. And so, even today, like, what's keeping you going?
I would say the biggest thing keeping me going is honestly my mother, because I've had a conversation with her and she's straight up told me like, hey, I'm dependent on you. So it's big. I realize that it's bigger than me, and everything that I'm doing is bigger than me. I have written on my whiteboard in my room just all the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing, and just it's my sister, my mom, my grandmother. It's all because of them. So I realize that everything that I'm doing in college, everything I'm doing in basketball is a lot bigger than me.
Yeah. And so obviously there's a lot of kids who look up to you because, you're not letting any of this get in the way of what you want.
Yeah.
Like, what are stuff that, like, when you see a kid going through the same thing, like, what do you have to tell him or her? Like, what would you tell if, you were sitting with them?
What would I tell them?
A piece of advice.
Yeah. Find your passion and run with it. Don't let the world tell you what you can and can't do. You got to figure that out for yourself. So figure out what that is and run with it and strive in it and thrive in it and just go hard for it. Mm-hmm. And let that be your main motivation.
Mm-hmm. And so now you're playing for the wheelchair basketball team. Like, what type of success have you had, or like what are future goals that you have in place, that you're trying to achieve?
Oh yeah. So some future goals I want is really an All-American award, but not only All-American award, but an academic All-American award. And I really want that for myself, just because of where I came from or where I started at in high school. Before I came to college, I had the mindset of, I don't want to do college. I don't think it's for me. So in high school, my grades it really reflected that. So I really want to turn it around, going into college and get an academic All-American award, just to prove to myself that, hey, I can do it. I can do the basketball and the grades. I can thrive in both areas. Outside of that, also just the All-American award. Yeah.
And so what are you pursuing, like, in school? education wise?
Right now, I'm an English writing major with a minor in leadership studies. But I'm looking to honestly change my major to sociology because I just feel like that's fitting for me and what I talk about and what I want to thrive for in life. And I think sociology and leadership studies minor, they go together pretty well. So.
And so, like 10 years down the line, like what would you say you see yourself doing?
I see myself doing a lot more for other people. Doing a lot more for the youth in similar situations, just trying to be a leader in different positions, whether that be in a diversity, equity, inclusion program or anything like that. Just anything where I can help lead people out of a situation where they feel like they're not a part of something. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
And so, kind of backtracking a little bit, we talked a lot about your struggles as a kid. Is there anything that you would say you face like today, you know, with your disability, that you feel like you want to talk about or you feel like you could connect with somebody?
Yeah. I mean, even still to this day, it's hard to say that you always feel a part of the main crowd. You get what I'm saying? Just a part of even society sometimes, because sometimes it can feel like you're just invisible, you know, just because you're in a chair, and sometimes it feels like other people don't see you. That's really the biggest struggle right now, and not only for me, but for my teammates, because I want to represent my teammates here as well. Especially at the university level, at times it can just feel like, you know, we're pushed off to the side at times. Yeah.
Was there a specific time or moment or anything that you've been through that you can like kind of off the top of your head?
There was a time, I think, at your guys' last home game, I believe, the women's team last home game. We were trying to get the front row seats to the stands because that's supposed to be reserved for the disabled and elderly. The student section, we're cutting off that section, and we couldn't see. My team couldn't see. They tried to force us in the corner. And later on, I talked to Dr. Robbins, had to move, everything like that. But then later on, there's things that escalated that were just kind of unfair to us and my team. But that is a good example of, I feel like, us being kind of pushed aside and just like, hey, no, we're here. We're not worried about you. You can go sit in the corner. You get yeah.
And so I could tell, like you even said to start this interview, like about your confidence.
Yeah.
And when you're in those situations, like how do you deal with people who like are not understanding? Like how do you bridge the gap between, you know, like people who don't know and like trying to help them understand?
Yeah, especially in that moment when I was in front of my teammates, that was a big moment for me to kind of step up, just because the rest of my teammates, they kind of just froze up and just like, whoa, you know what I mean? But at that moment, I felt like I really had to say something because it wasn't right. So in that moment, I kind of just immediately just went to somebody with a higher authority figure to speak to them about what needs to change as far as enforcing the rules of where people should be sitting and where people shouldn't be sitting. So I think the big thing is just going to people that are capable of making those changes, and especially from a person with disability, you have to make sure that those rules are being enforced.
Did younger you ever envision yourself being where you are today?
No, not at all. I didn't think I was going to college. A big part of that was because I didn't believe that I could play at this level. I didn't believe that I was good enough. I was told I wasn't good enough a lot by other opponents, players I played against, people I played with. So my confidence at a young age was low as far from a basketball standpoint and even at an academic standpoint, just from grades in high school and everything like that. So, yeah, I would have never thought I'd be here. Never thought.
What did the process look like for you to get to where you are today?
For me, it was really just I need to believe in myself more. I needed to have a stronger mindset and realize that the negative things I'm telling myself is not true. I am capable of doing these things. I am capable of playing ball at a high level. I am capable of getting good grades in school and doing all that at the same time. So it's really just me. I gotta work harder. I gotta believe in myself. That was really a big mental shift for me. Yeah.
And that's like especially as athletes, like we struggle with that so much, especially like, you know, certain games you go into. And I know I was at one of your games one time and like I seen you after halftime, like you're not shooting the ball to make it, you're shooting it to miss it. So like it's like just, you know, piece of advice from me to you is You could do it. Like you've already made it. You have nothing to prove. You know what I mean?
It's crazy you said that game too, because right after that, the game after that, I led the team. I led the team scoring the next 2 games. I attribute to what you said in the text messages. So yeah.
And that's like keeping it hard. That's athlete to athlete, and that's struggle to struggle. Because I've been there. I've been told I couldn't make it, and we both have persevered, and we've made it this far. Yep. So to conclude this interview. If younger you was in this room right now, and your mom, everybody, you know, everyone who believed in you, and so if they were all in the room right now, what would you tell them?
Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for not giving up on yourself, to myself. Thank you for staying strong, because there was a lot of times where you could have just quit. Where you could have just said, "Oh, woe is me. Oh, I got this disability. I can't do this. People are telling me I can't do this." But I decided to choose the positive route, and I'm proud of myself for that. I'm just thankful for all my family for sticking beside me through that.